Hello friend, welcome back to my channel KBS Technocrop. Today we are diving into one of the most fundamental topic in software development, unit testing. If you have ever heard terms like test coverage or test driven development and wonder what they mean, then you are in the right place. By the end of this video, we will have a solid understanding of what unit testing is, why it is important, and how it is fit into the software development life cycle. Let's get started. So I'll be having 10 different part of this test driven development. In this complete series, I'm going to cover basic of unit testing and then environment setup, and then we will have complete detail about writing test cases, then how to write test cases, fixer and test suite, and how to use it. Then in the series fifth, we will be discussing about the test driven development. And then in the series six, where we will be discussing about mocking and what are the mocking frameworks are available in market. And part seven, where we are going to discuss about the code coverage. And then uh, part eight, where we are going to discuss on the continuous integration. Part 9, where we will be discussing about different reporting approaches, and also we will be discussing about how to integrate with CI/CD pipeline as well. In the final series, where we are going to discuss about that best practices. So in today's video, we will be more focusing on fundamental of unit testing, so that in the upcoming video when we are going to cover about the test driven development, the basic concept and fundamental concept is required. So it will be good to have the basic fundamental skill on unit testing, so that it will make easier you to understand test driven development. So let's understand what is unit testing. So a unit testing is a type of automated test which focus on a specific individual piece of functionality. For example, let's say consider in your any of your application you have written some methods, like let's say consider you have written a method to calculate discount, right? And you want to test the all the scenarios which applicable for calculating the discount for different input parameter. You want to test it, right? So uh, this unit test will give a privilege to a developer to write a test case for an individual function or individual piece of code, right? Typically this means a testing a simple method or function in a isolation. Things of unit testing as a mini verification of your code. Each test check if a particular function or procedure is working as expected, right? So let's understand unit testing and how does it differ from this different type of testing. So if you see in this, what we can see that the testing can be categorized at high level in three, that is UI testing, or you can say end-to-end testing. Then you will have integration testing, and then you can consider the unit testing, right? So unit testing is most isolated tests which we can test a particular function or particular procedures, right? Right, as soon as you see in this pyramid is called test pyramid. So in this pyramid the unit testing is down, right? And then integration testing, where you are going to test how does one or more services are integrated or application are integrated. That's where you can test it. UI testing or end-to-end testing, where you will have complete end-to-end test cases, where you are going to use the web pages or front-end web-based testing, where you are going to test uh, by using Selenium or any different technologies or manual testing to do that end-to-end testing. So unit testing is more isolated and it's more faster with compared to integration testing and UI testing. And then as soon as in this pyramid you go up, the integrations and complexity increase more, and the speed, that means the speed of the test execution, is decrease. So for example, if you are writing a unit test case, it may execute faster, but if you are doing end-to-end test cases or integration test, it will be slower. So what makes a good unit test? So what are the properties or attributes uh, are the best practices we should follow to write a good unit test cases? The first one is isolated. A unit test should be isolated from other part of the application. This means no database access, no network call, nothing that could introduce external dependencies. So a unit test should not have any external dependencies, right? For example, if you are willing to test a data business logic, which basically calls a data access layer, then you have to mark the dependencies for data access layer, and you should test only the business logic, right? So it should be most isolated. And second is that deterministic. Deterministic means it should produce the same result every time you run it. So if your input parameter, right, if your input parameter for your test case is remain same, then the output of that particular functions, right, our result should be same. So that's how your test cases should be deterministic, right? And then fast. Unit test should execute quickly, because the unit test most of the time we include or associate into the CI/CD pipeline. So if your unit test cases are not executing quickly, that means it's not able to execute quickly, then your pipeline will get slow, and the deployment cycle of the project will take more time for every check-in check-out, because each time when you do check-in check-out, your test cases should run. So that's why the unit test should be faster. Readable. Readability is very important factor of the unit test cases. Your unit test case must be readable. Readable in the sense, whenever anyone reading the test case, they should be understand that what is being tested here, and what is input output functionality. So basically it should be testing specific a specific result of that particular function. If a function, let's say, consider have the multiple exception scenario where it used to return a different exception in different scenario, in that case you should have a different test cases for each positive and negative scenario, so that your test case will be more readable and more isolated. Let's create a simple uh, test case and understand how we can write a simple test cases. So what I'm going to do, that I have opened Visual Studio 2022, and then I'm going to create a C Sharp library application. So I will use that class library application. I will create new, and then I will select a location. I will give that calculator app, right? And then I will create a new folder. I will select .NET 8.0. So it will give me a project created there. To save the time, what I will do, I will add the code for calculator. So it will have add, subtract, multiply, and division method. So I'm going to add few method here. Let me add it here. I'll put here as a calculator. I will rename that class as a calculator. Let's say calculator. And then here what I'm having it here is that I'm having four method. One is for add, subtract, multiply, and divide. So these are the four functions which I have added inside this class library. I will try to build it. Right. Okay, so build successfully happening. Now what I will do, I will create a unit test. For this unit test, I'm using xUnit. So let's say add new project, and then we will try to see test, type here test. So you will be able to see MS test and unit test, and then xUnit, right? So for this sample, I'm just running xUnit. You can use any of this. So let's use xUnit, and I will. So based on, let's say, calculator app dot test, let's say consider like this, and click on, right. Next step is that I need to add this library reference here. So what I will do, I will do add, and then reference. So let's say dependency, add reference, add project reference, and then I will add my library reference here, right. That's good. Now what we will do, we will be going to this test, right, and then uh, we will try to add a simple test case, right. So here we will use calculator app dot calculator dot add. Let's say I'm just putting 2.0 and 3.0, and then I will put variable result, and then I will put a short dot equal, right. And when you are adding two values, then you want to verify that the addition of 2 plus 3 equal to 5, right. So this is very basic unit test case. What we are doing it here, we are basically calling the method which is available into the my calculator class. Let me rename that calculator. Here I will rename this as a calculator.cs file. Okay, so I have a calculator class which has the four static method here. Now I added a test uh, solution here, project here, and inside this I have a unit test 1.cs file where I have written a test. I can give that name test add, right, add. So now what I did it, I call that method here for add by passing these two number. I'm just putting a short that 2 plus 3, I know it will be 5. So I want to check that my expected is 5, what result is happening. So now we will do build, rebuild solution, and then you can go on text explorer, right. Text explorer, you can see your test case is there, right. You can run it, run the test cases. So you can see it's getting passed. Let's say consider if I put my expectation in 6, now what will happen? My test case will get filled. So you will be able to see that my test case will get filled now. So test case get filled. Now let's see, let's add more test cases just to understand in more detail how we can use a same method to test with the different values, right. So we will be having a same test case with the, we will be passing the dynamic value for that particular test to run same test case multiple time, right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add more test method inside that. So let me try to add a test case there with the multiple values, and we'll see that how does it works, right. So here in this, what we have, we have given whenever you want to run a test case with the multiple values, then what you are going to do, that you are going to use it a tag called theory, and then you will be having initialized data. The first value is result, and the other, basically first two values input parameter, and the third one is basically the result. For example, when this test case will run, then every time x, so let's consider here, so what do you understand here is that this is x, this is y, and this is result, right? So now if you save it, and here we will make it 5 because it should be 5, so I just make it 6 just to fail these test cases, rebuild. Now if you see, now you will be able to see total 6 test cases, but whereas what we have written it, you have written only 2 test cases, 1 and 2. Why it's a 6? Because you are using same test case with the different set of test data, so it will run 6 times. How many times you want to do that, right? If I add one more inline data, let's say consider 41, 31, then 72, right? So it will, now if I build this, you will be able to see now it will have one more test cases variable, right? So see that here now it's become 6, right? 6. So sometime what happens, you want to run a same test case with different dynamic data. So in that case we will use that tag called theory, and then we will use inline data when you are using runner as a xUnit. So let me run this all test cases. Okay, so you can see that this all test cases are getting passed. So this is very simple test case which I try to explain it. I know there are few attributes which you might not be aware, but in upcoming series of this test driven development, I will take each attributes and I will explain in more detail in upcoming video. So if you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe and share. Thank you so much.